Listen, I am going to tell you something that will make your gill flaps twitch. Something that still keeps me awake during the dark cycles. My name is Vorak, and I was a hunter scout for the Thalassan Dominion, back when we actually had a dominion to speak of. Back when we thought we were the apex predators of this galaxy's oceans. Back when we were stupid. You want to know what happened to us? Fine. Sit down, keep your sonar quiet, and I will tell you exactly how the humans broke us. How they took our greatest strength and turned it into our worst nightmare. But first, you need to understand something about my people. We fellow Thalassans evolved in the crushing depths of Corridor 7, a water world with oceans so deep that your primitive species would implode before reaching the halfway point. We ruled those waters for 3 million cycles. 3 million. We built cities in trenches that would swallow your pathetic surface vessels whole. We had technology that could crack planetary cores. We had weapons that could boil entire seas. And we had sonar. Oh, the sonar. Our sonar was not like your crude surface dweller toys. No, no, no. Our sonar could map a grain of sand from 300 kilometers away. We could hear a fish's heartbeat through solid rock. We could detect thermal variations, chemical compositions, structural weaknesses. Everything. Our sonar pulses were so advanced, so precise, that we could literally see through matter itself. We called it the Eternal Echo, and it made us gods. When we left Corridor 7 to spread across the stars, we looked for one thing only: water worlds. Oceanic planets. We didn't care about your dry, dusty rocks with their thin atmospheres and their pathetic gravity. Give us pressure. Give us depth. Give us the blessed dark waters where sound travels true and clean. That's where we belonged. That's where we thrived. Earth seemed perfect. Mostly water. Deep trenches. Rich ecosystems. The dominant species, these humans, they lived on the surface like cowards. They feared the deep. They had primitive submarines that could barely scratch our city's depth ratings. They were prey. Simple as that. Or so we thought. I was part of the fifth wave. You understand, the fifth wave of colonization. That means 4 waves had already gone before us, each one carving out territory in Earth's oceans, each one reporting the same thing: easy conquest. The humans had detected us. Sure, they sent their little submarines down to investigate. We destroyed them. They sent warships. We destroyed those too. They tried depth charges, torpedoes, all their surface dweller weapons. We laughed at them, literally laughed, sending mocking sonar pulses that their primitive equipment probably heard as random noise. Commander Threx, my unit leader. He was confident, arrogant, even. These humans, he said during our descent briefing, they cannot even survive in their own oceans without artificial equipment. They are land creatures playing at being aquatic. We will sweep them aside like plankton. 19 of us in that insertion pod. 19 trained hunter scouts. Each one a veteran of at least 4 world conquests. We were the best. We'd fought in the methane seas of Proxima IV. Battled the crystalline swarms in the ammonia oceans of Keltnine B. Earth's oceans. Child's play. We descended into the Pacific Ocean, somewhere near their Hawaiian chain. The water was warm, almost pleasant. Our sonar painted everything in perfect detail: volcanic formations, coral structures, schools of fish scattering from our presence. The humans had some monitoring buoys in the area. We ignored them. What were they going to do? Drop bombs? We could hear those coming from 100 kilometers away and dodge them easily. First objective, Threx announced, his voice carrying clearly through the water. Establish forward base in the Clarion Fracture Zone. Second objective, eliminate any human presence within 500 kilometers. Third objective, begin resource extraction operations. Questions? None of us had questions. This was standard procedure. We'd done it a dozen times before on other worlds. The first 3 days went exactly as planned. We set up our habitat modules, activated our harvesters, mapped the entire region. The humans sent a submarine to investigate, just one. We let it get close, let its primitive sonar ping uselessly against our shields. Then Threx gave the order, and we shredded it with sonic cutters. The humans inside didn't even have time to scream. On the fourth day, everything changed. Everything stopped. It started with the silence. You have to understand that the ocean is never truly silent. There's always something: thermal vents hissing, tectonic plates grinding, marine life chirping and clicking and calling. The ocean is a symphony of sound, and for species like us with advanced sonar, it's like living inside a painting that never stops moving. We don't just hear the ocean, we see it through sound. It's how we perceive reality itself. But that morning, I woke up and there was nothing. Just nothing. I activated my sonar, sent out a standard pulse. The echo came back wrong, muted, distorted. Like trying to shout through thick gel. I sent out a stronger pulse. Same result. I cranked up the power to maximum and sent out a full spectrum burst that should have mapped everything within 50 kilometers. The echo that came back was so garbled, so twisted, that it made my sensory organs ache. "Commander," I called out, trying to keep the worry out of my voice. "We have a problem with the sonar." Threx emerged from his chamber, his expression already showing concern. He'd noticed it too. "It's not just your equipment," he said. "It's affecting all of us. The entire environment has changed." "Changed how?" asked Kella, our tech specialist. She was already running diagnostics on the habitat's main sonar array. "Nothing's broken. The equipment is functioning perfectly. It's the water itself that's different." "Water doesn't just change," Threx snapped. "Run a chemical analysis." Although the results made no sense. The water composition was identical to yesterday. Same salinity, same temperature, same pressure. But something about it had changed. Something about the way sound moved through it. "Maybe it's a natural phenomenon," suggested Cream, trying to sound calm. "Some kind of thermal layer or—" He never finished that sentence. "Because that's when we heard it. Or rather, we didn't hear it. See, here's the thing about humans. They are clever. Annoyingly, terrifyingly clever. They'd studied us for weeks, watched us, listened to how we operated. They understood that we relied completely on sonar, that our entire civilization, our entire way of perceiving the universe, was built on sound. So they took it away from us. They built a weapon that didn't explode, didn't shoot, didn't do anything obvious. It just made the water around us quiet. They'd released some kind of compound into the ocean, billions of tiny particles that absorbed and scattered sound waves. Suddenly, our perfect sonar was useless. We were blind. No, worse than blind. We were trapped in a sensory void, a place where sound went to die. "Combat protocols," Threx ordered, and I could hear the strain in his voice. "Full defensive perimeter. Activate all weapon systems. They are coming." But how were they coming? We couldn't see them, couldn't hear them. Our sonar was useless, and we'd never developed eyes worth mentioning. Why would we? We could see through sound better than any optical system ever could. But now, in this unnatural silence, we were helpless. "I've got thermal readings," Pilla announced. "Multiple contacts moving in from all directions. But they are small, too small to be their submarines." "Distance?" Threx demanded. "Close. Very close. 200 meters and closing." "Open fire," Threx commanded. "Saturate the area with sonic cutters." We did. We unleashed everything we had, filling the water with enough destructive sound energy to liquefy steel. But in that dead, quiet water, our weapons barely traveled 50 meters before dissipating into uselessness. The particles, whatever they were, didn't just block our sonar. They absorbed all sound. Our most powerful weapons were suddenly no more effective than angry shouting. "They are inside 100 meters, Pella said, her voice rising in panic. "I can't get a clear reading. The thermal signatures keep disappearing." That's when I understood. The humans weren't using submarines at all, they were using divers. Actual biological divers, swimming through the water with their own bodies. Something we'd never considered because it seemed so primitive, so vulnerable. But in this unnatural silence, it made them invisible to us. They could move slowly, carefully, generating minimal thermal signature, and we'd never know they were there until it was too late. The first hunter scout died without making a sound. Just there one moment, gone the next. We didn't even know he was dead until Pella's thermal sensors registered his body temperature dropping. "They are in the habitat," someone screamed. Chaos erupted. We thrashed around in the darkness, firing weapons randomly, calling out to each other, trying desperately to re-establish any kind of sonar contact. But the silence held. That terrible, suffocating silence. I remember feeling something brush against my flank. I spun, activating my cutting talons, slashing at empty water, or what I thought was empty water. Something struck me hard in the side and I went tumbling through the habitat, crashing into equipment. Pain flared through my body. I sent out a desperate sonar pulse, pleading for any kind of echo, any kind of information. Nothing. Just that dead, flat silence. Another hunter scout died. Then another. I could hear their death screams, but I couldn't locate them. Couldn't help them. The humans were moving through our habitat like ghosts, killing us one by one, and we couldn't do anything to stop them. Threx was shouting orders, but they were useless. How do you fight an enemy you can't detect? How do you defend against something that exists in a realm you can't perceive? I felt something grab my primary fin. Cold, flexible fingers wrapped around it with surprising strength. I panicked, thrashing wildly, smashing my body against the habitat walls, trying to shake loose whatever had me. The grip released, and I kicked away, putting distance between myself and whatever that was. My sensory organs were useless. My weapons were useless. My training was useless. For the first time in my life, I understood what it meant to be prey. Somewhere in the chaos, I bumped into Pellet. We clung to each other, two terrified soldiers reduced to helpless children. "What do we do?" she whispered. I didn't have an answer. What could we do? Run? Where? The silent zone seemed to extend in all directions. Fight? Against what? We couldn't see the enemy. "Count off," Threx ordered, his voice hoarse. "Everyone's still alive, count off." We did. Out of 19 hunter scouts, only 8 responded. 11 dead in less than 10 minutes. The humans had butchered us and we never even saw them coming. "Abandon habitat," Threx commanded. "Emergency ascent. Everyone now." We fled. All thoughts of duty, of honor, of conquest abandoned. We swam upward as fast as our fins could carry us, desperate to escape the killing zone. The humans didn't pursue. Why would they? They'd made their point. We breached the surface, gasping and disoriented. Sunlight, something we'd barely experienced before, burned against our skin. But we were alive. 8 survivors out of 19. Threx immediately tried to contact the command ship in orbit. "This is Hunter Scout Unit 7, he transmitted. "We have suffered catastrophic casualties. The humans have deployed some kind of acoustic countermeasure. Request immediate extraction." The response came quickly. "Negative on extraction, Unit 7. High Command wants intel on this weapon. You are ordered to capture a human soldier for interrogation." Threx stared at the communicator like it had just insulted his ancestors. "Command, we just lost 11 soldiers. The weapon makes our sonar completely ineffective. We are defenseless down there." "Then adapt," Command responded coldly. "You are hunter scouts. Hunt." The transmission ended. We floated there on the surface, 8 broken soldiers, and I realized something terrible. High Command didn't care about our lives. They cared about their pride. The mighty Thalassan Dominion, conquerors of 100 worlds, had been embarrassed by a species of surface-dwelling mammals that couldn't stand, even if it meant sacrificing us to learn how. "What are your orders, Commander?" Krim asked quietly. Threx was silent for a long moment. Then he said, "We rest, we adapt, and tomorrow we go hunting." I should have deserted right then. Should have swum away and never looked back. But I was young and stupid and still believed in duty. So I stayed. We all did. That night, floating on the surface under alien stars, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about those cold, flexible fingers wrapped around my fin. About how the humans had moved through our habitat like they owned it. About how they'd turned our greatest strength into a fatal weakness. And I wondered, not for the first time, what kind of species develops on a world where they can't survive in most of their own planet's environment. What kind of evolutionary pressure creates a creature that has to build machines just to visit the depths? What kind of stubbornness drives them to go there anyway? Humans, I realized, were a species defined by what they couldn't do naturally. They couldn't breathe water, so they invented diving equipment. They couldn't survive the pressure, so they built submarines. They couldn't hunt in the depths, so they created sonar. And when they faced an enemy that could do all those things naturally, an enemy with sonar so advanced it seemed like magic, they didn't surrender. They took it all away. They created silence. The next day, we descended again. Threx had a plan. We'd split into two groups, approach from different angles, try to trap a human diver between us. It was desperate and probably suicidal, but we had our orders. The silent zone was waiting for us. That same dead, suffocating quiet. But this time we were prepared. At least we thought we were. We'd modified our equipment, reduced our reliance on sonar, tried to focus on the thermal sensors and pressure readings. It wasn't enough. It was never going to be enough. We found a group of human divers, easily enough. 4 of them, swimming in formation about 80 meters down. They were wearing these bulky suits, carrying strange equipment, moving with practiced efficiency. Without sonar, they looked so vulnerable. Slow, awkward, easy prey. Threx gave the signal, and we attacked. 6 of us converging from different angles. Sonic cutters charged and ready, determined to capture at least one human alive. We never had a chance. The moment we moved, everything changed. The humans scattered, but not randomly. They moved with purpose, with coordination, in ways we couldn't track without sonar. And then they activated their weapons. I don't know what those weapons were. Some kind of compressed air projectile device. Crude and mechanical. But in that silent water, we never heard them coming. Never detected them at all. Just sudden, shocking pain as metal spears punched through flesh and bone. Krim died instantly. A spear through his primary brain cluster. Pella took one through the gill system and started drowning in her own blood. Threx himself was hit twice, and I watched him spiral down into the dark, already dead. I ran. Again. Coward that I am. I turned and swam for my life while the humans methodically killed the rest of my unit. I didn't stop swimming until my muscles screamed and my gills burned from exhaustion. When I finally stopped, I was alone. Completely alone. The last survivor of Hunter Scout Unit 7. I floated there in that terrible silence and realized the truth. We hadn't lost a battle. We'd lost the war. The humans had figured us out completely. They'd weaponized silence itself, and against that we had nothing. I should end the story there. Tell you I deserted, swam to some remote part of the ocean, and hid until the war ended. But that's not what happened, because I was still young, still stupid, and still thought I could make a difference. I spent the next week observing, learning, watching how the humans operated in their unnatural silence. I saw their patrols, their supply routes, their communication methods, and I started to understand their strategy. The silent zone wasn't permanent. It couldn't be. Those sound-absorbing particles they'd released, they were biological. They had a lifespan. After about 8 days they'd break down and normal sound propagation would return. But by then the humans had already accomplished their objective. They'd cleared us out of an entire region, established their own presence, and moved on to the next zone. They were systematically reclaiming their oceans, one silent zone at a time. And my people, for all our technological superiority, couldn't do anything to stop them. I tried to report this to command. Tried to explain that we needed to change our entire approach. But they didn't want to hear it. They sent another wave of hunter scouts into the Pacific, 35 soldiers this time, heavily armed, confident they could overwhelm the humans through sheer force. They lasted 6 hours. 6 hours before the humans released the particles, created another silent zone, and slaughtered them all. After that, command finally started listening. They pulled back, regrouped, tried to develop countermeasures to the silence. But how do you counter silence? How do you adapt when the enemy has removed the fundamental sense you rely on? Some suggested we develop visual systems, but our eyes were vestigial, barely functional, and it would take generations to evolve them into something useful. Others suggested we use electromagnetic sensors, But water doesn't conduct electromagnetic radiation well, and the humans had already thought of that anyway. They had countermeasures ready. The truth was simple and terrible. We'd evolved to be perfect ocean predators on our own world, but Earth's oceans weren't our oceans. And the humans, clumsy and slow as they were, belonged here. They'd evolved here. They understood their oceans in ways we never could. They knew every thermal vent, every current, every hiding place. And most importantly, they knew that sound was both a tool and a weapon. 6 months into the war, the Thalassan Dominion announced a full withdrawal from Earth, called it a strategic repositioning to save face. But we all knew the truth. We'd been beaten by surface dwellers, beaten by creatures who couldn't even breathe water, beaten by silence. I stayed behind. Don't ask me why. Maybe I was still stupid. Maybe I wanted to understand the humans better. Maybe I just couldn't face going home as a failure. I found a deep trench off the coast of their continent they called Asia, built a small shelter, lived off the local marine life, and spent my days trying to make sense of what had happened. How had we lost so completely? How had every advantage we possessed been turned against us? Then one day, about a year after the invasion ended, something extraordinary happened. A human dove down to my trench. Alone, unarmed, carrying only a communication device and a translator unit. I almost killed him. Every instinct screamed at me to strike, to tear him apart, to claim at least one small victory. But I didn't. Maybe I was curious. Maybe I was just tired of fighting. The human's name was George Takahashi, and he was some kind of scientist. He spoke slowly, clearly, giving the translator time to work. "I have been tracking you for 3 months," he said. "You are the only one who stayed." Why? I told him the truth. Because I didn't understand. Because my entire worldview had been shattered, and I needed to know how. George, to his credit, didn't mock me. Didn't gloat. He simply said, "You want to know why you lost?" "Yes." He smiled, though I couldn't see it through his diving mask. I could only hear it in his voice. "You lost because you assumed your way was the only way. Your sonar was so advanced, so perfect that you never considered someone might make it irrelevant. You evolved for absolute dominance, but we evolved for survival, and survival makes you creative." "The silence," I said. "That was creative. That was desperate," George corrected. "You were slaughtering us. We needed something, anything, that would level the playing field." One of our marine biologists remembered reading about animals that produced sound-absorbing compounds. We modified them, weaponized them, and deployed them. It worked better than we hoped. "You made us blind." "No," George said quietly. "We made you equal." In the silence, neither of us could rely on advanced sensors. It became about training, tactics, and understanding the environment. And this is our environment. You are the invasive species here. Part of me wanted to argue, to insist that we were superior, that we'd simply been unlucky, that if we'd had more time we would have adapted and won. But I couldn't, because George was right. We'd been so confident in our superiority that we never prepared for an enemy who would refuse to play by our rules. "What happens to me now?" I asked. "Do you kill me? Study me? Lock me up?" George shook his head. "That's up to you. You can stay here if you want. We will leave you alone, or you can come with me. Help us understand your people better. Maybe prevent another war." I should have been suspicious. Should have assumed it was a trick. But I was tired. Tired of being alone. Tired of being afraid. Tired of the silence. So I went with him. And that's how I became the first and only Thalassan to live among humans. The first to truly understand what we'd faced. The first to realize that humanity's greatest strength wasn't their technology or their weapons or their cleverness, though they had all of those in abundance. Their greatest strength was their refusal to accept limitations. They couldn't survive in the ocean, so they went anyway. They couldn't compete with our sonar, so they eliminated sound itself. They were outmatched in every way and they won anyway. Because humans, I learned, don't know how to quit. They don't know when they are beaten. They see an impossible problem and think challenge accepted instead of retreat. It's infuriating. It's inspiring. It's terrifying. And that's just part one of this story. The war was over, but the real nightmare, that was just beginning. So there I was, living among humans. Me, Vorak, the last Thalassan on Earth, spending my days in a research facility off the coast of California. They built me a special habitat, deep enough to be comfortable, with access to proper pressure and clean water. They fed me, protected me, treated me if not like a friend, then at least like a valued colleague. I should have been grateful, should have been relieved, but instead, I felt like a traitor. Every time I answered their questions about Thalassan technology, every time I explained our strategies or our weaknesses, I wondered if my people back home would consider me a collaborator. A sellout, the one who helped the enemy understand us even better. George visited me 3 times a week. We'd sit in my habitat, him in his diving suit, me trying not to feel ridiculous talking to someone who needed machines just to have a conversation with me. And we'd discuss everything. Culture, biology, history. He was genuinely curious, not in that clinical, detached way scientists usually are, but actually interested in understanding my people as people, not just as specimens. "Tell me about Corridor 7, he said one day. "What was it like growing up there?" I described it as best I could. The eternal darkness of the deep trenches where I was spawned. The bioluminescent gardens my clutch mother tended. The singing spires where young hunters learned to perfect their sonar. The pride I felt the first time I successfully mapped a target from 10 kilometers away. George listened quietly, nodding occasionally. When I finished, he said something that caught me off guard. "It sounds beautiful. I wish I could have seen it before the war." "You would have died within seconds," I pointed out. "The pressure alone would have crushed you flat." "I know," George said, and I heard the smile in his voice again. "But I still wish I could have seen it." That was the thing about humans that constantly surprised me. Their curiosity was stronger than their survival instinct. They wanted to see things that could kill them just to know what those things looked like. It was insane. It was reckless. It was very, very human. 3 months into my stay, George brought someone new to meet me. A woman named Dr. Lisa Park, head of something called the Deep Ocean Response Initiative. She was small even by human standards, with dark eyes that missed nothing. "Vorak," she said, her voice crisp and professional through the translator. "I need your help with something sensitive. Something that George tells me you are uniquely qualified to assist with." I should have known right then that trouble was coming. Should have refused, but curiosity, it turns out, isn't just a human trait. "What kind of help?" Dr. Park pulled out a datapad and showed me an image. It took me a moment to process what I was seeing because it seemed impossible. It was a Thalassan habitat, intact and operational, sitting on the ocean floor. But that couldn't be right. We'd withdrawn completely. All facilities were supposed to have been dismantled and removed. "Where is this?" I asked, my voice sharper than I intended. "Arctic Ocean," Dr. Park replied. "Under the permanent ice sheet, about 4,000 meters down. We detected it 2 weeks ago, during a routine survey. It's been there the whole time, hidden, operational, and according to our readings, occupied." My blood went cold. Well, colder. You know what I mean. "How many?" "We estimate between 40 and 60 individuals. They are not responding to any communications. Haven't made any aggressive moves. Just sitting there waiting." "Waiting for what?" George asked. I knew the answer before Dr. Park even said it. "We think they are waiting for reinforcements. We have picked up encrypted transmissions heading off-world. Vorak. We need to know what they are planning." There it was. The real reason they'd kept me alive, kept me comfortable, kept me talking. They needed an inside source. Someone who understood Thalassan military doctrine. Someone who could help them figure out what my people were planning next. Part of me wanted to refuse, to tell them to figure it out themselves. But the truth was, I was curious too. What were my people doing in the Arctic? Why had they stayed behind? And more importantly, what were they planning that required staying hidden for over a year? "I need more information," I said. "Equipment manifests, communication logs, anything you have intercepted." Dr. Park smiled. "I was hoping you'd say that." Over the next week I analyzed everything they'd gathered on the Arctic installation, and slowly, horribly, I began to understand what was happening. My people hadn't given up. They just changed tactics. The Arctic facility was a research station, not a military base. The encrypted transmissions weren't calling for reinforcements. They were sending data, specifically data about Earth's oceans, temperature patterns, current flows, marine biology, tectonic activity, everything. They are preparing for a second invasion, I told George and Dr. Park during an emergency briefing, but this time they won't make the same mistakes. They are gathering intelligence, learning everything they can about Earth's oceans so they can plan properly, and when they come back, they will come back with countermeasures to your silence weapon. George looked grim. How long do we have? Years, probably, I said. Maybe a decade. Thalassan military planning is thorough. They won't rush it. But when they do come back, they will be ready for everything you can throw at them. Dr. Park leaned forward. Unless we stop them now, if we can destroy that research station, set back their intelligence gathering, we buy ourselves time. Maybe enough time to develop new defenses. You want me to help you attack my own people? I said flatly. I want you to help prevent another war, Dr. Park corrected. A war that your people will lose, Vorak. You saw what happened last time. You lived through it. Do you really want to watch it happen again? She was right, and I hated her for it. Because the truth was, if my people came back, the humans wouldn't just use silence again. They'd escalate. They'd develop worse weapons, more effective countermeasures, and my people, stubborn and proud as they were, would keep pushing until the humans decided that the only solution was extermination. What do you need from me? I asked, quietly. Dr. Park pulled up a map of the Arctic facility. We need you to help us get inside. These facilities have security protocols you understand better than we do. We also need you there in case we can negotiate with them. Some of them might listen to you. They will call me a traitor. Probably, George agreed. But you will be a living traitor. That's better than a dead loyalist. Hard to argue with that logic. 2 weeks later, I found myself back in the field. Except this time, I was working with humans instead of against them. Our team consisted of me, George, Dr. Park, and 6 human military specialists, whose names I never learned because they never took off their helmets. Professional paranoia, I suppose. Can't blame them. We approached the Arctic facility carefully, quietly, using every stealth technique the humans had developed. No active sonar, minimal thermal signatures, slow, deliberate movements. The humans had learned well from our first encounter. They'd become hunters in their own right. The facility itself was impressive. I had to admit, whoever designed it had done excellent work. It was built into an underwater ice cave, almost invisible, unless you knew exactly where to look. The Thalassans inside had clearly chosen the location for its isolation and defensive advantages. How do we get in? One of the military specialists asked. The main entrance has automated defenses, I explained. But there's a maintenance access port on the lower level. It should be less guarded. We found the port exactly where I said it would be. The humans placed some kind of cutting charge on the lock, a shaped explosive designed to breach the seal without causing structural damage. I held my breath, waiting for alarms to blare for defense systems to activate. Nothing happened. The door opened smoothly and we swam inside. The interior of the facility was dark and quiet. Too quiet. My sensory organs strained, trying to detect any presence, any movement. But there was nothing. Just empty corridors and inactive equipment. Where is everyone? George whispered. Good question. The facility's power was on. Life support was running. But there were no signs of occupation. No Thalassans working at terminals. No guards patrolling. Nothing. We moved deeper into the facility, checking each chamber as we went. Storage areas, equipment bays, living quarters, all empty. It was like everyone had just vanished. Then we reached the central command chamber, and I understood. Oh, how I understood. The room was filled with Thalassans, 43 of them to be exact. All of them floating motionless in suspended animation pods. All of them asleep. All of them waiting. What is this? Dr. Park demanded. I moved closer to the nearest pod, reading the display panel. These are long-term suspension units, medical grade. They are being kept alive but unconscious. I checked another pod, then another. They are all research scientists, biologists, oceanographers, geologists, non-military. George examined the main computer terminal. According to this, they have been in suspension for 8 months. Automated systems have been running the facility and transmitting data back home. Why would they do this? One of the military specialists asked. I knew why. Because I would have done the same thing in their position. Because they knew you'd find them eventually. They couldn't operate without risk of detection, but if they left, they'd lose the facility and all their research. So they suspended themselves, let the automated systems continue the mission, and waited. Waited for what? Dr. Park asked. I pulled up the communications log. The answer was right there, transmitted 3 days ago. A message to Thalassan High Command. Mission complete. Data collection finished. Ready for extraction. They are done, I said quietly. They have gathered everything they needed. Now they are just waiting for a ship to pick them up. When? George asked urgently. I checked the star charts, calculated orbital mechanics, factored in Thalassan faster-than-light travel times. 2 weeks. Maybe 3. Dr. Park looked at the suspended Thalassans. Then at me. We can't let them leave with that data. I know. We need to destroy it. All of it. I know. And the facility. We can't risk it being reused. I know, I said, for the 3rd time. But what about them? I gestured at the sleeping scientists. They are non-combatants. Civilians by your own laws. Dr. Park's expression was cold. They are enemy intelligence operatives who have been gathering information for a future invasion. We wake them. They will fight or run, or destroy the data. We leave them asleep. The extraction ship picks them up along with everything they have learned. So we kill them? I asked. While they sleep? That's your solution? What's your solution, Vorak? Dr. Park shot back. Let them go? Let them bring their data home so your people can plan an even more devastating invasion. I didn't have an answer. Because she was right. These scientists, however innocent they might seem, were part of a larger military operation. Their research would be used to plan attacks to kill humans to conquer Earth's oceans. Letting them go would be signing a death warrant for countless others. But killing them in cold blood while they slept helplessly in their pods, that went against everything I believed in. Everything I'd been taught about honor and warrior conduct. George must have seen my internal struggle because he stepped forward. There's another option. We don't kill them. We don't let them go. We keep them. Dr. Park turned to him. Explain. We take them with us, keep them in suspension. They become our guests, our insurance policy. If the Thalassans try to invade again, we have hostages. 43 reasons for them to negotiate instead of attack. That's kidnapping, I pointed out. That's mercy, George countered. The alternative is leaving them here for their extraction ship, which means we'd have to destroy this whole facility with them inside to prevent the data transfer. Or we wake them up and things get messy. This way they stay alive safe, and we prevent the data from reaching your people. Dr. Park considered this. We'd need to transport them carefully, keep them stable. It would be a logistical nightmare. But possible, George pressed. Possible, Dr. Park admitted. And it does solve multiple problems at once. I looked at the sleeping scientists, at their peaceful faces, unaware that their mission had failed, unaware that they'd become pawns in a much larger game. They won't like it when they wake up. Probably not, George agreed. But they will be alive. That's more than they'd get with the other options. We spent the next 6 hours carefully disconnecting the suspension pods and preparing them for transport. It was delicate work. One wrong move, one system failure, and we'd kill the very people we were trying to save. The human military specialists worked with surprising gentleness, treating each pod like it contained something precious. While they worked, I downloaded everything from the facility's computers, every piece of data the scientists had collected, every analysis they'd performed, every communication they'd sent. If the Thalassans were planning to use this information against Earth, then the humans deserved to know what that information was. Done, one of the military specialists announced. All pods secured and ready for transport. What about the facility? Dr. Park asked. Set charges on the main supports, I suggested. When the extraction ship arrives, they will find nothing but rubble. With any luck, they will assume it was a structural failure, a tragic accident. We placed the explosives carefully, set the timers for 6 hours, and began the long, slow journey back to the surface. 43 suspension pods, each one carrying a sleeping Thalassan, each one representing a life saved and a potential future prevented. The journey took 3 days. 3 days of careful maneuvering, constant monitoring of the pods, and gnawing anxiety that something would go wrong. But the humans were professional. They knew what they were doing, and slowly, steadily, we made it back to the California research facility. They placed the Thalassans in a specially constructed storage area, deep and secure. Still suspended, still sleeping, still unaware. Dr. Park posted guards, implemented security protocols, and generally treated it like the high-value asset it was. "What happens now?" I asked George. "Now," he sighed. "Now we wait. We study the data they collected. We prepare, and we hope your people are reasonable enough to negotiate when they realize what we have done." 3 weeks later, the extraction ship arrived at the Arctic coordinates, found nothing but wreckage. The Thalassans searched for survivors, found none, and left. We monitored their communications. Confusion, anger, theories about structural failure, about human attack, about sabotage, but no mention of the missing scientists. Either they didn't know how many had been at the facility, or they assumed everyone had died in the collapse. Either way, the humans had 43 Thalassans that the Dominion didn't know about. A month after that, I got a visitor. Not George or Dr. Park, but someone I'd never seen before. A man who introduced himself only as Director Sullivan from something called Earth Defense Coordinating Committee. "Vorak," he said, settling into a chair outside my habitat. "I have been reading your file. Quite the journey you have been on. Soldier to refugee to consultant to what would you call yourself now?" "Survivor," I said simply. Director Sullivan smiled. "Fair enough. I'm here because we need your help with something. Something bigger than a single Arctic facility." I didn't like where this was going. "What kind of help?" "We have been analyzing the data from that facility. Your people have been studying Earth for over a year, learning our weaknesses, planning their return. Well, two can play that game. We want to study them, learn about Corridor 7, about Thalassan military doctrine, culture, technology. We want to understand your people as well as they understand us." "You want me to be a spy," I said flatly. "I want you to be a bridge," Director Sullivan corrected. "A way for both species to understand each other before the next war starts. Because make no mistake, Vorak, there will be a next war. Maybe not this year, maybe not next year. But eventually your people will come back, and when they do, I want humanity to be ready. Really ready." "What makes you think I will help you?" Director Sullivan leaned forward. "Because you don't want another war either. You have seen what humans can do when pushed. You have seen how we adapt, how we innovate, how we refuse to quit. Next time we won't just use silence. We will use things that will make silence look merciful, and your people will push anyway. Because they are proud and stubborn and convinced of their superiority." He wasn't wrong. That was the worst part. He wasn't wrong about any of it. "What exactly do you want from me?" I asked. "I want you to teach us," Director Sullivan said. "Everything you know about Thalassan technology, everything about their tactics, their psychology, their culture. I want to create a training program. Teach human soldiers how to think like Thalassans, how to anticipate their moves, how to counter their advantages. You want to know how to beat us even more thoroughly next time. I want to know how to end the war before it starts," Director Sullivan said. "Your people respect strength. If we can demonstrate that we are prepared, that we understand them, that we can counter everything they throw at us, maybe they will reconsider invasion. Maybe they will choose negotiation instead." It was a nice theory. Optimistic, even. But I'd spent enough time among humans to know there was more to it. They weren't just preparing for defense. They were preparing to take the fight to us, to make sure that if war came again, it wouldn't be fought in Earth's oceans. It would be fought in ours. But what choice did I have? I was one Thalassan against an entire planet of humans. I could refuse, and they'd find other ways to learn what they needed. Or I could cooperate, and maybe, just maybe, influence how that knowledge was used. I will help, I said. On one condition. Name it. When war comes again, because it will, I want you to try negotiation first. Real negotiation, not just demands and ultimatums. Let me talk to them. Let me try to make them understand. Director Sullivan considered this. You think they will listen to you? The traitor who helped their enemies? Probably not, I admitted. But I have to try. He nodded slowly. Deal. You help us prepare, and when the time comes, you get your chance to prevent the war. That was 5 years ago. 5 years of teaching humans how to be better ocean predators. 5 years of watching them develop countermeasures to Thalassan technology. 5 years of realizing that I'd helped create something terrifying. The humans didn't just learn our tactics, they improved on them. They developed sonar systems that could match ours. They created weapons that could function in any acoustic environment. They built submarines that could dive deeper, move faster, and fight harder than any Thalassan vessel. They trained soldiers who could think in 3 dimensions, who understood pressure and current and sound propagation as well as any Thalassan hunter. And they did it all in secret, building up their forces, preparing for the war they knew was coming. Last week, Thalassan ships entered the solar system. 12 of them, full military fleet, coming to finish what we started. High Command had finally decided Earth was worth the effort, worth the risk, worth the cost. They sent a transmission. Surrender terms. Evacuate the oceans or be destroyed. Standard Dominion protocol. They expected the humans to panic, to scramble, to beg for mercy. Instead, Earth sent back a counter-transmission. A video, actually. It showed 43 Thalassan scientists waking up from suspension, confused, disoriented, demanding to know what happened. And then it showed me Vorak, the traitor, standing in a human facility, explaining to the scientists that they'd been asleep for 6 years, that their mission had failed, that the humans had captured them, kept them safe, and were now using them as leverage. The transmission included a message from Director Sullivan. Simple, direct, very human. We have your people, we have studied your technology, we have prepared for your invasion. You can attack, and we will destroy you. Or you can negotiate, and we will discuss terms for returning your scientists unharmed. The Thalassan fleet didn't respond immediately. They are still out there, beyond Mars orbit, presumably arguing about what to do. Attack and risk their people, negotiate and look weak. Neither option is good. But here's what they don't know. What they can't know. The humans aren't bluffing. They are ready. I have seen their preparations. I have helped build them. If the Thalassans attack, they won't face silence this time. They will face something much, much worse. They will face an enemy that learned from them, that adapted, that evolved. George visited me yesterday. We sat in my habitat like we always do, him in his diving suit. Me trying to process everything that's happened. Did we do the right thing? He asked. All this preparation, all this build-up. Did we prevent a war, or just make the next one worse? I didn't have a good answer, because the truth is, I don't know. Maybe the fleet will see reason and negotiate. Maybe we will find a peaceful solution. Maybe my people will realize that Earth isn't worth the cost. Or maybe they will attack anyway, and all this preparation, all this knowledge I shared, will just make the slaughter more efficient on both sides. I have a question for you, I said to George. When I first met you, you said humans evolved for survival, that survival makes you creative. But what happens when survival requires becoming monsters? When the only way to protect your world is to perfect the art of killing? George was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, we become monsters. We do what's necessary, and then we hope we can find our way back to being human again afterwards. That's what scares me most. Not that the humans will lose. They won't. I have seen what they have become, what I helped them become. They are apex predators now in every sense of the word. No, what scares me is what happens after, when the Thalassans are defeated. When the threat is gone, will the humans be able to put down their weapons? Will they be able to stop being the monsters they had to become? Or will they look around at the galaxy, at all the other species swimming in their own comfortable waters, and decide that Earth's oceans aren't enough anymore? I used to think the Thalassan Dominion was the most dangerous thing in the galaxy. A species of perfect predators, spreading across the stars, claiming every ocean they could find. I was wrong. We were never the most dangerous thing out there. We were just the first to make the mistake of threatening humanity, the really dangerous species. That's the one that spends most of its life unable to survive in most of its own planet. The one that has to build machines just to visit the deep places. The one that should be weak and vulnerable but refuses to accept those limitations. That's the species that will inherit the stars. Not because they are the strongest or the fastest or the best adapted, but because they are the most stubborn. Because they don't know how to. We used sonar to find them. They used silence to end us. And now, because of me, they have both. They can hunt in silence or sound, in light or dark, in any environment they choose. They have taken everything that made us special and added it to their own capabilities. I did that. I taught them. I helped them. And I will have to live with that choice for the rest of my life. The Thalassan fleet is still out there, still deciding. In a few hours or days, we will know if my people choose wisdom or pride. If they choose life or death, either way, nothing will ever be the same. The galaxy had a comfortable order, predators and prey, strong and weak, natural and right. Humans broke that order. They used silence to prove that strength can be negated, that evolution can be surpassed, that the underdog can win if they are clever enough and desperate enough and stubborn enough. And now every species in the galaxy is going to have to deal with that lesson, including mine. So yes, I will tell you what happened to the mighty Thalassan Dominion. We found a world that looked easy. We found prey that looked weak. We found an enemy that couldn't compete with our natural advantages, and we lost. Completely. Totally. Irrevocably. Because we forgot the most important rule of survival. It's not about being the strongest. It's not about having the best technology. It's not about natural advantages. It's about refusing to accept defeat. About adapting faster than your enemy. About turning your weaknesses into weapons and your enemy's strengths into vulnerabilities. Humans understand that rule. They live it. They breathe it. They built their entire civilization around it. And that's why they won. That's why they will keep winning. That's why, in 100 years or 1,000 years, when the history of this galaxy is written, it won't be about the Thalassan Dominion or any other species that thought they were special. It will be about the stubborn little apes who couldn't even breathe water but conquered the oceans anyway. They used sonar to find us. We used silence to end them, except it didn't end them. It made them stronger.